just to run quickly into the bank's engagement with Africa. So first of all, like I mentioned before, two countries are the founding members. Two African countries are founding members of the AIIB, which is Egypt and South Africa. Although South Africa is not yet, is still a prospective member, it hasn't yet deposited its articles of agreement with the bank. So though it's a signatory, but it's kind of like has a prospected membership, it's kind of confusing where South Africa stands. I'm still looking into that, how that works, how it can be a founding member but also be a prospected member. That is kind of confusing. However, there are currently 18 African countries that are members. And yeah, those are the countries. Actually, interestingly, Uganda is not a member country. And African countries are also part of the Belt and Road Initiative, and they are engaging in many of the Belt and Road Initiative projects. So it kind of like can be perceived that this is kind of a natural progression of how things will go, that if a country is a partner in the Belt and Road, it will naturally engage with the AIIB. So it will come to see, we will see how that intersects. And since most of these projects are receiving funding from the AIIB, so we'll see how that goes. And according to my research, there have only been 3 projects by the AIIB that have been funded, approved in Africa, and they are all in Egypt. The first one is for development of solar plants in Egypt. The second one is for sustainable rural sanitation. And the third one is a lending facility for infrastructure, mostly in the public-private sector, to encourage construction of infrastructure in collaboration between public and private sector. So the first one, these projects actually show how the bank operates. So it does partner with other financial institutions in order to diversify and to increase the resources. So it makes sense that it goes within its mandate to increase more sources for finance, for infrastructure development. And it does show that there is an opportunity for the bank to partner with the World Bank. Despite there being friction between the two, China and the US, they still do partner. And then AIIB has also entered into a partnership agreement with the African Development Bank and also the Islamic Development Bank, which has a number of Islamic countries, African countries. So that is a way in which African countries participate. So, of course, there are very many opportunities for African countries within the bank, for this kind of bank. Mostly, you can see that eligibility to borrow under the articles lies mostly with members of the bank. If you are a member, then you can borrow or you can access finances. You get priority. However, non-members can also receive financing if they apply and the application is approved. And the AIIB also provides an opportunity for competitive alternative financing for member states. So African countries can access newer sources of finance where they do not have to limit themselves to the ones they have, so they can diversify and increase access to development funds. And then they can cooperate and partner, and this finance is kind of like, because the bank is targeted towards infrastructure, it kind of like targets one area for the development of infrastructure, which is a bottleneck for most African countries in order to achieve the development goals. Because the traditional way of doing things was that you go to the bank. However, to the World Bank. However, when you go to the World Bank, their mandate really is about eradication of poverty. So what the World Bank thinks is eradication of poverty might be supplying funds in a certain sector, either agriculture or medicine or education. However, it doesn't speak to the real needs of most African countries. So what World Bank thinks is eradication of poverty might not answer infrastructural problems. These are the problems that most developing countries are facing, that they don't have the infrastructure even to make sense of those new public goods like health and education. You might have education, you might have investment in education and medicine, but you don't have the facilities to house them or the roads to transport things to these amenities, or to get other countries to ferry these or to bring them either by ship or by railway or by air. These kinds of connections are like cut. So African countries can access specific capital for this specific kind of targeted investment. And also, it encourages investment in the infrastructure industry, and also it encourages African members to engage meaningfully in the international financial system and to have a chance to participate in governance and to integrate into the global economic landscape. So it kind of like brings these African countries into the fold and to follow principles and to be able to be guided by established financial global standards and principles that might, stabilize the financial system on the financial level, but also on the domestic level. So, of course, what the AIB still stands by is that it provides easier accessibility to funding. The loans are market-based. So market principles govern loans rather than policy. And the AIIB's narrower mandate allows for more flexibility, quicker decision making, and reduces the time between disbursement of funds and implementation of projects, thereby reducing operation costs. And its international membership lending risks are spread out. So it encourages creditors to take more risks and invest in these countries that would have otherwise been turned away from other financing sources because of their low credit ratings. And because it's new, the AIIB is responsive and reactionary to the changing global needs, and it adapts and uses innovation and encourages resourcefulness. And its theme is lean, clean, green. So this is like investment in green technologies and infrastructure, having technology innovation in infrastructure, and encouraging connectivity between regions. So this will kind of like hopefully put a positive turn on financing and change the way countries access funds, but also put, especially if it's mostly Chinese companies that are being financed, it can encourage them to adapt the standards to which the AIIB is putting out its loans, its environmental, social, and governance standards in their operations. Basically, that is a quick run through of the AIIB. So I hope that was quick enough.